My name is Susanna Loewy, and I am a flutist, but I'm here for you today as the program director at Project 440 and also the lead teaching artist at Project 440. So at 440, I create and help to implement the programming, and I also do a large portion of the teaching for our Doing Good course, which is all about leadership and entrepreneurship. What I want you to do first is in the chat, when you think of leadership and entrepreneurship, type in the first thing that comes to mind. This is not necessarily in the context of being a musician, just the first thing that comes to mind when you think of leadership or entrepreneurship. So the chat is over here. Hi, Alexander. I'm glad to be able to see you. So the very first thing that comes to mind when you hear the words leadership and entrepreneurship. So kind of what I'm trying to get at is, what were you thinking you were coming here for today? I'm looking at the chat. Maybe I have to reload here. Okay. Businesses, Matthew O says, thank you. Anyone else have any responses? A lot of this class is going to be somewhat interactive, so I would love to hear your thoughts. Let's just get warmed up. Why don't you type in the chat your favorite type of ice cream? Vanilla, Ken Hurchins says. Cheesecake ice cream, mint chocolate chip, chocolate peanut butter. Thanks, Marissa. Butter pecan. Very cool. All right, we just had somebody else join us, which is very cool. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we will. Okay, so Max, you responded about my first question. Thank you. So management, project management, funding, branding, and then of course, chocolate. Thank you, thank you. So I'm going to share my screen so that we can get going. And sorry. Okay, so what we're going to talk about first is kind of why we're all here as musicians. So why do we like music? What are some paths that musicians take? And putting it together to figure out what this means to be successful. Now, these are huge questions, and we're not going to just answer them in one fell swoop, but let's divide it up. Now, this first one, I do want to hear, why do you like music? What draws you to music? What makes you want to continue to have music in your life? So please either come off the microphone and tell me, or else put it in the chat. Either way is completely fine. I'm going to click over to the chat so you will see what I'm looking at here. So no responses yet. Okay, so Matthew, music is an emotional response to life and offers comfort and stability. Absolutely, I love that response. And this is structured as a normal Zoom call so that you guys can come off the mic and talk if you wish. So what are some of your other thoughts as to why you like music? So Ken Hutchins says it provides solace, comfort, and challenges with unknown music. Absolutely. One of my favorite things is combining known with unknown and then figuring out what the juxtaposition is. So for me, I think I would have said community 7 months ago. I would have said that community is one of the big reasons that I enjoy music. And so what does that mean now? I think it still means community, but the communities and how they're defined have changed, and how we're looking towards the future has certainly changed. So Sophia, you said music is the one thing in my life that has been a constant, and it means a lot to me, not only performing it solo and with others, but also listening to all forms of it. Yeah, so I have kind of an interesting story about that. I don't listen to music much unless I'm studying it and really getting ready to perform it. But that's not a sad thing. It's that music has become a very active part of my brain. And when I was little, my family is full of musicians, and after dinner we would sit down and we would listen to music, and it was an active listening. So we didn't really have music on in the background, and I still am not really that comfortable with background music. But when I'm listening, I'm like really immersed in it. So I totally get that, Sophia. Okay, so Max, it is the best form of communication, in your opinion, especially cross multicultural. Absolutely, music is the universal language, right? Or one of them. I think math is considered to be another universal language, but there's so much math and music, so there you go. Great, thank you guys so much for these responses. I'll click back over. So now you guys kind of responded with this, but if this next prompt adds anything to your response, I would love to hear this. So why is music important to you? So does this add anything to what you were thinking? I think one of the things that we need to be taught in this pandemic world is like screen management, how to deal with all the different things open to be able to see everything and everyone. It's possible I need to move on to 2 screens, but anyway, that's a side note. I'm just waiting for you guys to write.
I think someone else said this in the chat too, but it's definitely, especially in my life personally, there's been a lot of change. So music is always one of the few things that stays the same. You always have it, and you'll always have it wherever you go.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Great. Does anybody else want to contribute to that? All right, so let's talk now about what it means to be a musician. So what are some of the paths that musicians take? And I want to think beyond this performer-educator dichotomy. So yes, being a musician can be performing, it can be educating, it can be both, but let's think past that. So what are some of the things that you can do as a musician that are not necessarily in one box of performer or educator? And you're welcome to come off the chat, come off onto your mics, or type into the chat. Thanks, Ken, for your response here.
I think music is often used as a cultural tool.
Okay.
Especially with COVID-19, it's becoming, well, it always has been, but it's being seen more as something people turn to. So I feel like one big, probably of like a broad path you could take with music is just providing that comfort and inspiring a culture. especially now with
Absolutely.
COVID, I've seen a lot of classical musicians taking to social media and kind of just um, sharing their music to help other people, not necessarily to make money or for their own benefit, but a lot of people are just sharing music for the sake of sharing music to bring comfort to a broken world.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you for those. Other paths that musicians take, and yeah, just talk, and I'm going to share these notes with you guys later. So I'm going to write like music festival organizer. My typing skills today, not that great. This is the second time I've had problems. Music festival organizer, teaching artist, composer. What else? What else can you guys think of? There are no right or wrong answers. I just want to hear what your ideas are as to what you can do as a musician.
One of the things that interests me personally is sound design and composing, of course, how music affects the way that we view film and the world around us, really. Based on what we're hearing, what do we see?
Yes. I once led, a 2-hour session based on these things, showing films with no music, and then the same thing with different types of music and how that changed the story. It was for elementary school students, but absolutely, it's really great.
I actually did a smaller version of that same project 2 years ago.
Oh, very
I don't
cool.
think it was based off of. I mean, yeah, same idea. Yes, that's wonderful.
Absolutely, that's great. Any other ideas here? What are the things that you guys want to do? Like as Sophia answered. Okay, I'll flip back. Okay, so this idea of a portfolio career, I just want to bring it up. And I feel like I completely embody this. The portfolio career is this idea. If you think of those old-fashioned portfolio binders that they're like all squished together, then you open them up and it like becomes like an accordion, right? And you've got a lot of stuff in one thing and then nothing in the next file. So it's like a filing system, right? So the idea here is that you have lots of different files and you have things in your life that you're putting in all the different files. And then one might become stuffed. You might be doing tons of that. So right now, my teaching file is massive, and it even has now sub files because I'm doing all sorts of different types of teaching. But then maybe something else like performing, which before was huge, is slightly smaller. So when some things happen and you have to kind of pull from one to another, you still have a career, right? Because you had all these different files. So the pros are kind of just what I said, in that you can react and interact with your surroundings a lot more easily when you're developing all these different skill sets at once. The cons are that you can feel a little crazy sometimes, and that you sometimes feel like there's not enough time to do any one thing super, super well. And, just like on the business side of things, it's complicated to be getting paychecks from a million different organizations. Life would be a lot simpler if it were one orchestra, right? But if it were one orchestra and then there's a pandemic and the orchestra goes under, then you have a problem. So there's pros and cons to all different types of career situations, but just kind of wanted to talk through this idea of a portfolio career and of expanding on as many different skill sets as you're comfortable with, and you still considering yourself a musician. Okay, hold on. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry. I just made a huge mess of this slideshow. Okay, sorry. Okay, here we are. All right. So, and then the trick to all of it is to figuring out the career balance that seems right for you, and that understanding that it morphs and changes throughout your career, and that can be a good thing. So now I want to think through what success is, because when you think about what path you want to take and how to be a leader and an entrepreneur in whatever path you want to take, you want to be thinking about how to know when you're successful. So what are some of the standard elements of societal success? What do you think it means in society to be successful? So again, just tell me what you think. And
Money.
let's see. So money, absolutely.
Owning a home.
Okay, what else?
Being able to provide for yourself and your family without problems. A lot of the time, there's a huge stigma behind having trouble doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Fame.
Anything else?
I think you have some, well, in the chat.
Oh, sorry, I
And
forgot to. It's hard with all the windows. You want to tell me what's going on in the chat?
Ken says being a contributor to society.
Great. So I have a question for you guys. Is happiness an element of societal success? Do you think society puts value on being happy?
No. In fact, I think it is more focused on the no pain, no gain sort of mentality, and that, you work until you die, and if you don't enjoy what you're doing, then that's too bad. Well, that's too bad you didn't work hard enough. That's sort of
Right, right. Any other thoughts?
I was
feel like
actually
society-
going to say the opposite. And
Uh-huh.
because I'm older, a little bit older in the career, and I find that people who are now in their 30s and have realized one thing and realized that hasn't worked out for them, they attribute happiness at their jobs, wanting to wake up and go to their job and make a difference despite possibly the pay, that for them is more rewarding and a defining of success. Because the grind gets tiring real quick.
Sometimes I feel like the circle I have a 6-month-old son, and so I've never really counted weeks before the way I do now, because everybody wants to know, like, he's still at the age where people like ask how many weeks old he is, and it's just crazy the count and how many weeks have gone by. Anyway, so yes, the weeks tick by, and so does work, and so does life, right? Okay, nice to hear different viewpoints here. That's great. Okay, anything else that anybody wants to add here? Societal success or about happiness? Oh yeah, go ahead.
I would like to add something, if that's okay.
Of course, yeah.
In my opinion, I don't really believe in trying to get success. I think success happens when you're not thinking of getting it. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah.
Great. So you that was a great sequitur into my next question. What will make you feel successful? So what are your thoughts here?
I think personally, as a very social person, I think the number of people I'm able to impact has a lot of hold on how I personally view my success.
Great.
Yeah, I agree with Matthew in the way that since I was a little kid, like when people would say things like, mostly my grandmother would say things like, "You made me cry when you played," I would be like, "Great, that's my job. That's what I'm supposed to do." And so I agree with them in the way that, you know, that is what would make me feel successful if I were able to show people, um, if I were able to convey how I want this to sound and how I want you to feel.
Did I sum that up okay?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I don't want to put words into anybody's mouth. Anything else? What would make you guys feel personally successful?
Ken in the chat says, when people extol your virtues and you don't have to say anything.
Great. Okay, so for anybody who's not comfortable talking or writing in the chat, that's totally fine and understandable. But I do want you to kind of be internalizing all of this and thinking through it yourself, because it's all going to culminate into at the end of the session. So just kind of thinking through each of these steps is going to be helpful as we move forward. Okay, so now I want to talk a little bit about something called the edge effect. So for anybody who's not familiar with the edge effect, it's actually a scientific phenomenon that where the forest meets the savanna, you have, or where two ecosystems meet, such as the forest and the savanna, where they meet, you have the most diversity in life forms. So this is a way that nature is creative, and scientists call it the edge effect. These two edges, they create different life forms influencing each other and in turn creating more and more life forms. And this concept was talked about in terms of music and in terms of public policy and in terms of just the arts in general by Yo-Yo Ma in his lecture on art and public policy called Art for Life's Sake. He talks a lot about citizen artistry and the edge effect and all the different important traits for our workforce. Now, the entire video is, the entire speech rather, is about an hour long. The first part of it is an introduction. About the first 25 minutes is an introduction, and then he talks for an hour. And normally I share a clip of it right here, but just for time's sake, I think I won't, but I do want to encourage everybody to watch this video every time, and any section of it. It's broken into 3 different parts, and any section of it, every time I watch it, I just feel newly invigorated to be a good person and putting my best foot forward in terms of my musical life and my personal life. So it's really an incredible speech, and I encourage you to watch it. So what I want to talk about now, though, are what are elements of a positive and thriving society. So what makes a society work? And so we could say no pandemic, right? But we don't have to necessarily say that right now. But what makes a positive and thriving society? So just tell me your ideas here.
Culture.
I've thought this for a long time, and I think empathy and understanding definitely makes it easier to not only understand where your fellow human being is at, but to just mind your own business and keep moving with yourself. Things like that.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Both of these concepts, it almost makes me want to show you this 12-minute clip, but 12 minutes is a long time in a 50-minute session. But the idea of meeting somebody else where they are is so important. And so, you know, that starts with making eye contact. And I think that's one of the reasons that Zoom sessions are so hard, is because even though, you know, you're communicating, you're speaking, you're hearing, you're seeing, you don't have the same level of eye contact. And so it makes it harder to really understand and be empathetic to what's going on around you in your interactions at work and personally. And so one of the things that Yo-Yo Ma talks about is that when he's teaching, when he's performing, when he's giving back to his community, he always first examines where the other person is and how he can meet them where they are in order to move forward. Because if there's a huge gap between people or between concepts, then there isn't a way to bridge it. But if both people can at least make the contact to see where the other person is, then you have the hopes at moving forward together. Whether it's a casual conversation or whether it's, you know, a political climate. What else? Yeah, go ahead.
Is that so? The non-zero sum system, the non-zero sum game. I don't know if you've ever.
No, tell me about it.
Definitely recommend looking into that. It's exactly what you just described, which is there is no way to win the game unless you know, how is it? I'm describing this poorly, but there is no way to win. The only way to win the game is to for both parties to benefit out of the interaction. You both want to benefit. So if one party benefits from the interaction and the other one doesn't, then the only person to win is that one party. And then the scale is not even. So you always want your scale to be even.
Got it. Thank you. Great. I love that. And I will do more research about that. I definitely appreciate that. What else creates a positive and thriving society?
Building on the empathy and understanding would be communication.
Absolutely. Very good. Anything else anybody wants to add? Okay, so now I want to think about, we're going to kind of narrow things in. So we started very big with what makes a good society, right? But now I want to think more internally about who your communities are. So let's think about all the different communities that we're involved in. So for me, I would say my family community, my musical community. And I could narrow that down that more, and I could say, like, you know, the different groups that I'm involved with. So I've got my group in DC, I've got my group in Lancaster, and they are absolutely both musical communities, but they're also quite separate, right? And they have their own problems each in, you know, amongst them. But so just for now, I'll say my musical communities. You know, a lot of people will say they're school communities or some sort of religious affiliation community. But I want to hear what communities are important to you. And if there's something that I've just said, that's great, tell me. And if it's something completely different, that's great too.
I think this is kind of broad, but demographic communities are big. Not only maybe your racial demographic or your age demographic or your culture, that kind of brings a lot of people together.
Absolutely, it's a really, really good point. I'm going to put something that I'm experiencing for the first time in a while, and that's I just moved. And so getting to know a new neighborhood community is something that I had kind of forgotten about. I had a great neighborhood community where I used to live, but I had forgotten about the whole process. And so I'm kind of re-informed about all of that. Sorry, you can probably hear the baby. What else? What are the communities that are important to all of you?
For me, my youth orchestra is for me a great community.
Great, thank you, Alexander. Absolutely. Do you guys feel like you have a school community? I don't know how many people are virtual and how many people are in person, but do you feel that you have a school community these days?
Yes, I think, especially, I think for a lot of communities, COVID has brought them closer together in some ways too.
Good. Yeah, it's true.
I think
Anything else? Go ahead.
I think friends, my friendship circle, maybe your friend community is I don't really know how to phrase that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I definitely feel like I've gotten closer with my, my friends, people that I want to see, want to hang out with, and I feel like I've definitely learned more about those people and gotten closer with those people, and I feel so much more love for those people.
Great. Yeah, absolutely. That's a very important community. I can't believe it slipped my mind. Anything else that anybody wants to add here? So now I want you to pick one community. If you didn't speak up, then that's fine, but pick one community that is especially important to you. So one that you want to kind of concentrate on for the next, 10, 20 minutes, 15. You don't have to tell me what it is, just pick one internally. And now I want you to brainstorm. I'm going to give you like 2 to 3 minutes here, and I want you to brainstorm the needs you see in this community that you picked. And then we will do some sharing out loud. But this whole workshop is of course for you. So I will keep a timer on. I'm going to give you 2 minutes from here. So brainstorm some needs you see in the community that you picked.
Ken said in the chat, some communities need money and usually ask either directly or indirectly for support.
Okay, so tell me, what are all the other community needs that you've all been thinking about? Thank you for telling me about the chat. It's one last thing I have to check up on.
I said I live on a military base, so our little town, I guess, is one of the communities I feel very connected to, and being overseas, we kind of struggle with, I guess, communication across the board, and just the overall lack of unity.
Great, thank you. Anybody else contribute here? What are the community needs that you're seeing within the community that you especially care about?
I think general overall love for each person, even if, you know, they don't, and this could go somewhere bad quick, but even if they're not, you know, of the same whatever as you are, still, like you said, taking a person at face value.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thank you. Yes. And so, when I look away, I'm like kind of looking out the window to try to like focus my thoughts. I'm not looking at any other weird thing. But just that this is very quickly edging on diversity and equity and inclusion, and this DEI. This very important issue is something that's relevant in a lot of the organizational talk, but hearing it come from the other side, from the community need, it's such a good reminder that like grant speak and the way we all speak as an organization, that these concepts come from real need. So thank you for that. Other thoughts here, what your communities need? So now here's where we're kind of like jumping over to the next level. What is a way that you can influence these needs? So what is one thing that you think you could do to influence the needs you see? And this is where we're moving towards the leadership and entrepreneurship concept. So again, I'll give you a minute or two.
I think it starts on a very small scale, personal level of just modeling what you want to see in your community. And I feel like if you behave the way that you want, and if you behave in a positive manner, that can have a bigger impact than you might think in influencing the people around you.
Yeah. Great. Other thoughts on what you can do? And it can be, along this type of line, or if you, so an example, I have a cousin who, my grandmother who was 95, she passed away this summer, but she, when the pandemic started, she was trapped in her assisted living room for months and started really going downhill quickly. She didn't have COVID, but this is just one of the side effects of COVID, is that it's really very hard on the older generation, even when they don't have the disease. So he wanted to be able to interact with her, and he wanted to be able to share with her. But he wasn't allowed in, she wasn't allowed out. So he went and played the violin underneath her window. So just ways at trying, like looking for ways that you can implement change with, looking for need and then thinking about what you can offer. What are some ideas here?
Hi, I just want to share, I think sometimes we can, help other people in the community to basically act as a coordinator to make what they want to do happen. Because, everybody has a somewhat difficult life at this point. So sometimes some ideas just don't come to fruition. So it's good to have coordinator to keep each other accountable and to make things happen.
That's a great point. Absolutely. That just being the person that will facilitate is such a huge thing that you can offer. Thank you. Great. So I'm hoping that, you know, even if you're not comfortable speaking here, that you're thinking and brainstorming along these lines. So next, who can you work alongside? So who can help you? Who in your community would be someone that would want to collaborate with you? So this is the next question, and we don't have to do this out loud, but just having partners in crime, no, having partners in help, knowing who you can call on is such an important aspect of being a good leader. You cannot do everything yourself. So we're putting all this together today, and this was the last section that I wanted to get through today, so this works out well. Thinking about an artist statement, how to put this all together to give yourself an idea of how to move forward. So an artist statement is a broad declaration of your goals as a citizen of the earth that is complemented by the role that your artistry will play in achieving these goals. Now, always remember that it's a work in progress, and it should be, because our lives are a work in progress. So as you work on an artist statement, one of the things that I recommend is to put it somewhere that you're going to run into it, like maybe once every 2 weeks, once a month, like in your wallet, where every time you clean out your wallet, you'll find it. And finding it is a great reminder to like kind of think through, okay, am I still working towards the goal that I want? And if not, does that mean my goal needs to shift? Or does it mean that my work needs to shift? Does it mean that my everyday routine needs to change a bit? Or does it mean that my ultimate goals have changed? And either way is fine, but just keeping that intention behind both what you're aiming towards and how you are acting on how you spend your time, really. So some examples. Here's mine, and every time I read it, I feel embarrassed because I always feel like it's not quite good enough. But they should be single sentences, relatively, simple and cohesive. I aim to take part in and help create a broad range of performances that are impactful to my communities. Another one that is by a Project 440 teaching artist, amongst many other things. She said, I aspire to music performance, education, and collaboration with artists of all fields as tools to inspire and empower youth, and to ultimately build strong communities by bringing people of all backgrounds together. I love this one. Rebecca was a Project 440 teaching artist. She recently moved back home to England, but she says, my artistic life is founded on 2 goals: to create something beautiful and something good. I aim to work according to Benjamin Britten's call to arms, that artists be useful and to the living. So Joe's artist statement is in the form of a video. Again, I'm not going to show the video. It's only 3 minutes, but it's probably not worth spending 3 minutes on right now. But I will share this Prezi with you. I'll put the link in the document so you can watch all these videos later. But basically what Joe says in the video is that he wishes to leave things better than he found them. So it's kind of the campfire rule, right? So that when you go camping and you spend the night somewhere, that you always do something to improve the space a little bit. So that's basically what his artist statement is, that in whatever he does, he strives to do his best and make the space a little bit better than he found it. So I want you to kind of think through your artist statement now. And so again, it's a broad declaration of your goals as a citizen of the earth, and that's interacted with by the role your artistry will play in achieving these goals. So this is the culmination of all the things that we've just been talking about. What you want to change in your communities. You've thought through what communities are important to you. You've thought through what needs they have, and you've thought through why music is important to you, and what you wish to do as a musician. So it's culminating all of that together into a cohesive statement. And this is a massive undertaking, and it should not be done in 4 minutes. However, you can kind of get brains or the thought process going now, and putting everything that we've talked about today together. So again, I'm going to give you a couple minutes, and then I'd just love to hear first drafts from anyone who is willing to share their first drafts.
So my rough draft is that I strive to inspire and spread the love for music that lives in me to others, and provide the same comfort and stability that it has afforded to me.
Great. That's great. So what are the things that you feel like you would want to tweak if you were given the appropriate amount of time?
Definitely wording.
Got it.
And it's kind of repetitive.
Fair enough. Anybody else willing to share?
In the chat, Ken said, I facilitate others to achieve their artists and organizational goals based on music and community engagements through music.
Great. Thank you, Ken. In the chat, I'm going to put a link to this document where we were doing some brainstorming, and it has those links at the top with the Edge Effect video, and then at the bottom it also has the entire Prezi, should you be interested in looking back at any of these concepts or watching any of the videos. Happy to have you do that. Any thoughts, questions about some of the stuff that we've talked through? This is very much like a initial brainstorming surrounding how to move forward with the concepts of leadership and entrepreneurship through music, because of course, in order to lead, in order to be an entrepreneur, you have to think through what you want to change and how you want to do that, and why you are the one who should do this, make this particular change. Well, I see a couple people have clicked into the document, so that's great. I just wanted to say it was nice to see you all here today. I hope that the college fair has been a good experience and that you have a great rest of the evening. You still have a few 4 more hours left of it. So I will see you at the end for the wrap up and the big raffle. So I can't wait to see who wins those very cool prizes. And I'm always here if you have any questions overall, feel free to email me. Putting my email address in the chat as well, and I'll also put it on this document. So feel free to be in touch anytime, and have a great day.